I'm Judith Nusbaum. I'm representing the Unity Coalition for Israel at the Bar-Ilan University School of Communication, Center for International Communications, and the conference that we are attending today is Broken Mirrors, Human Rights Organizations, the Media, and Israel. This conference addresses the following issues. Does human rights really interest the press? And the relationship between human rights organizations and the media? And can the human rights organizations and the media create a productive public dialogue on the issue of human rights? I'm looking forward to interviewing my longtime friend, Yisrael Medad, who will be addressing the conference this morning. Yisrael Medad lives in Shiloh, in the Benyamin Region. He's lived there for more than 3 decades. He's also a foreign spokesperson for the Yesha Council of Jewish Communities in Judea and Samaria. In addition to that, Yisrael Medad holds an MA degree in political science from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and has worked as a Parliamentary Aid and as an advisor to a Knesset Minister. Previously, he was the director of Israel's Media Watch, monitoring organizations, and currently blogs at the Jerusalem Post. Yisrael.
Good morning, Judith.
Good morning. It is so good to be with you. I really appreciate this. The first question I would like to ask you is, does the media fairly portray issues and concerns of human rights in Israel?
The short answer is no. I will, in my remarks in another half an hour or so, give specific instances. For example, the entire media framework of the over 500,000, close to 600,000 Jews living beyond the former Green Line, which includes Jerusalem, are only framed in a political fashion. In other words, it's not a normal residency and you say, well, what do these people, what are their rights? Are they being, and I'm talking about in the first instance, employment rights or social welfare rights, like anybody Israeli other citizen. As soon as you move across the Green Line, you cease to become, for many organizations, a human rights person, a person that deserves human rights. I have with me the last annual report of B'Tselem, which calls itself the Center for Human Rights in the Occupied Territories. It does not have a word about Jews. Now, if the left, and I'll give other examples, can simply say that because of occupation, we therefore disregard all Jews, well, that's a political decision. That's not a human rights decision. Human rights cuts across political differences, alliances, ideology. If I commit a crime, that's one thing. But as we know now, for example, from the Edmund Lever report, we're not criminals. And therefore, the way the media treats the issue is a spin as if either they don't belong there, or if they are there, they're part of some political issue rather than any human rights issue. One more example, just to give you a taste of it, in 2005 we had the evacuation or expulsion, whatever you want to call it, okay, from Gaza. There was a horrific human rights violation systematically done by government agencies in arresting teenagers, especially young girls, holding them incarcerated in conditions that many other human rights organizations would complain about. Very few left-of-center human rights organizations complained about it, and the media treated it as if, well, it's coming from the right, therefore it must be a political issue rather than a human rights issue.
I agree with you, and I've lived through all these different evacuations of Jews, beginning with Yamit, and you've said it all. Another question I wanted to ask is the topic of human rights viewed as solely a left-wing matter?
By the left-wing, yes.
All right, but continue.
Okay, and therefore, because the left-wing, as in other places in the world, are very dominant, or at least very present in media, culture, literature, entertainment, Therefore, they're able to spin a message, or as we say, categorize the way you view and hear the news with certain key terms when they speak about it. I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard of the phrase left-wing extremist in the media?
No, I really haven't.
You will always
Only
hear
right-wing.
right-wing extremists, and there might be right-wing extremists. I'm not going to argue the point. But the point is, somehow there's never a left-wing extremist. The worst that you can get is a left-wing activist.
Yes.
Usually it's a peace activist. For example, the people who broke the finger of the officer who later, in a fit of anger, lashed out with his rifle butt, they were peace activists. They were not people who were commandeering the road and blocking the road in an illegal fashion. They were working for peace. So the terminology that you hear over and over again, or the way panels are formed for discussions, if there are 3 people on the panel, there'll be 2 from the left.
Right.
Okay? Or if there's one on the right, he'll be the one against the other right-winger.
I'd just like to clarify one thing for some of the people who may be watching, is when you identified the left-wing activist, you spoke of him, of course, cynically, but maybe it didn't come through. So could you just clarify that what you were saying about them is just the opposite of what they do?
Well, when we use the word, when the media use the words peace activist, they mean someone who's active for peace. Now, that means that I'm not active for peace because I would be against them. But I'm not against them per se. I'm against their method for achieving peace. If I think, and I think it's a legitimate opinion, that giving back territory, therefore decreasing Israel's security, therefore increasing the possibility of terror, or not allowing the Arabs to pay for their previous aggressions, either before 67 war, or how did we get the territories? Did we just simply walk into the territories? Or was it a preventive war of self-defense? All this becomes in the media not a peace act, or not a peace effort, or an endeavor. And therefore I am framed by the media inferior to my left-wing partner because I'm not for peace. I'm for territory. I am for Jewish rights. The whole issue of the Temple Mount, for example, when a Jew goes up to pray there, either he's a Messianic Jew, or he's a right-wing fanatic, or other terms of demeaning type of media language. But the fact is, the law of Israel is I have the right to pray there. It's the 1967 law for the protection of holy places. Now, what happens, okay, is that the police say that my act of prayer will cause a public disorder because the Arabs are against that, and therefore they don't want to have trouble. Well, why should I be punished, victimized, for fulfilling a legal right? You might say, I am not, and I'm willing to argue this, I'm not smart because I'm causing trouble. But then you say, well, take a look how the media treated Anat Hoffman. The same parallel situation. Worse, her group has a specific sub-legislation that says she cannot wear a talit at that place. There's another place for her to do so. Now, she could argue whether that's right or wrong, but the law specifically says she can't do what she does. If she does that, she's actually breaking the law. I am not breaking the law. I am going against police suppositions that there will be violence, which I could argue about yes or not, but the worst case is that I don't get my human rights.
Yeah.
And yet I am portrayed in the media in a very demeaning, derogatory manner.
That is so true. Well, is there any additional complaints or any comments that you would like to make before we close this interview and go into the conference?
Well, in my remarks, I will say that it's not a question of broken glass, it's shattered glass. The refractions coming from the media is not fair, is biased. I would also say in the state-sponsored media is illegal, but it's a tradition because the youngsters come from the IDF Galei Tzahal radio station. They move into channel 1. From channel 1 they move to channel 2. From channel 2 they move to channel 10. It's replication, and therefore we never get a true balance because there are enough people in the media of a either nationalist or religious bent. You see a lot, relatively speaking, but the media is not only the person behind the camera. It's the editor, it's the news desk, it's the caption editor, the picture editor in newspapers. There are many, many functions within the media that people really don't see who really control what gets on the air or on your screen.
So it's safe to say that all of us who read papers, watch television, play the internet, we have to be very critical and we have to be very careful of how we read things and have an understanding of the background of the issues prior to making any conclusions.
Judith, absolutely. And also take additional alternative resources for your information so you can make a better judgment exactly what happened.
Totally in agreement. Yisrael, I always enjoy our meetings and I find them informative, eye-opening, and interesting. And today was no exception. I thank you so very, very much for agreeing to be interviewed for the Unity Coalition for Israel's website. And I look forward to reading your blogs in the Jerusalem Post. Thank you again.
Judith, thank you very much.